I thought love was supposed to be simple. But when your own wife and her family start looking down on you, mocking the work you do and the life you've built, it quickly becomes a battle for respect, dignity, and control. This is the story of how I went from feeling invisible in my own home to fighting back in ways no one expected. You ever sit down after a long day's work, wipe the sweat from your forehead, and feel proud of yourself, only to have someone look at you like you're covered in dirt? Yeah, that was my life. I'm a blue-collar guy. Always have been. I work with my hands. Welding, carpentry, odd jobs when needed. I don't wear suits. I wear steel-toe boots, and sometimes my shirt smells like sawdust or oil. But I'm clean, respectful, and I've never turned down a job if it meant I could bring in honest money. That's how I met her, Lisa. She walked into the hardware store where I was helping out a buddy on weekends, looking for a replacement shower head. We talked. She laughed at my dumb joke about leaky plumbing being a metaphor for modern relationships, and one coffee turned into many. She had this big laugh and sharp wit that pulled me in. Things started off great. Real great. But even early on, I'd hear her mom say things like, "Oh, Lisa, I thought you'd end up with a doctor or someone from your uni days." Her dad would smirk and ask, "So how long you think your boy's back will last with all that lifting?" Always with a chuckle, like it was just harmless ribbing. Lisa would roll her eyes at them, sometimes even defend me. But I noticed she never really pushed back. She just let it pass. And maybe that's when I should have seen what was coming. After we got married, it was like a switch flipped. She started throwing the same kind of jabs. At first, it was, "You sure you want to sit on the couch in those jeans?" Or, "Babe, you smell like the garage. Go clean up before dinner." It was subtle. I told myself not to make a big deal. But that's how it always starts, isn't it? With things that don't feel big enough to fight over. You know how slow leaks ruin a foundation? That's what it felt like living with Lisa after the wedding. She used to drop by my workshop with lunch or sit around while I fixed up old furniture. She once said she loved the smell of sawdust and that I had real man's hands. But those days disappeared faster than I could blink. She stopped coming by, said the place was too dirty and depressing. Started making jokes when we were out with her friends, little digs like, "Don't mind him. He's just a caveman with a wrench." Everyone laughed. I smiled too, because I didn't want to ruin the mood. But inside, something twisted. She'd get dressed up to go out with her coworkers and wouldn't even ask me to come along anymore. And when I offered, she'd glance at my work clothes and say something like, "Not tonight, babe. It's kind of a professional thing. You wouldn't feel comfortable." The kicker? I'm not some slob. I clean up fine. I've got decent jeans, button-downs. I shower after every job and take care of myself. But to her, all she saw was dirt under the nails, even when it wasn't there. One night, I walked in the door and she wrinkled her nose like I was a sewer rat. Said, "Don't sit there. That's the clean sofa." The clean sofa. Like I was a disease. Her parents came over the next day. Her mom glanced at my toolbox in the hallway and asked if we were having work done. Lisa just smirked and said, "Nope, that's my husband." Cue another round of polite laughter. That was the first night I didn't sleep in our bed. I told her I had a bad back from work and stayed on the recliner. But the truth was, I couldn't stand lying next to someone who looked at me like I was less than. And that, my friend, was just the beginning. I still remember the day it all broke. It was a Thursday. I'd been out on a job since sunrise, replacing the roof of an old barn for a sweet old couple who insisted on paying me in cash and homemade pies. I was covered in dust and sunburnt, but damn, I felt good. Productive. Alive. I got home just before sundown. Reached into my pocket, pulled out my key, and it didn't fit. Thought maybe I had the wrong one. Nope. Tried again. Nothing. I rang the doorbell, thinking maybe the lock jammed or something. Lisa came to the door with her arms crossed. She didn't even look surprised to see me standing there. "What are you doing?" she asked, like I was the crazy one. I blinked. Trying to come into my house." She didn't move. I had the locks changed. I laughed. I actually laughed at first, because it didn't seem real. "Come on, Lisa. Don't mess around." She just stared at me, dead serious. "You can't come in like that. You stink of work. You're always dragging your filth in here. This house needs to be clean. You don't respect that." I looked past her and saw her parents sitting in my living room, sipping wine like it was just another night. Her dad raised a glass and grinned. Her mom didn't even try to hide the smirk. "You're joking," I said. "You're locking me out of my own house because I work for a living?" Lisa shrugged. It's not just that. You don't try. Every man I know wears a suit, drives a decent car, doesn't come home smelling like a machine shop. You can't even get a real job. Maybe if you finally did something normal, like go back to school or work in an office, we could talk. Until then, go stay with one of your grease monkey friends. That's when it hit me. They weren't just mocking me anymore. They were pushing me out, testing how far they could go. And now, they'd crossed a line they couldn't uncross. So I did the only thing I could. I walked away. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I turned around, got in my truck, and drove to my buddy Mark's place on the edge of town. When he opened the door, he took one look at me and said, "Who do I need to punch?" Mark's the kind of guy you want in your corner when the world turns on you. We've been friends since high school. He's seen me through busted knuckles, breakups, and beer-fueled breakdowns. When I showed up at his place that night, he didn't ask for details. He just handed me a cold one and said, "Start talking." I told him everything. About the slow erosion of my marriage, the snide remarks, the cold stares, and finally, the moment I found myself standing outside my own house like a stranger. He didn't interrupt. He just listened, arms crossed, jaw tightening with every word. Then he said, "You still got the deed to that house, right?" I nodded. "Yeah, Granddad left it to me. I owned it outright before I even met Lisa." He grinned. "Then they've screwed up big time." Next morning, Mark called his cousin Daniel. Daniel's a lawyer, not the slick, TV kind, but a quiet shark who knows real estate law like the back of his hand. We met at a diner. I handed him my paperwork, deed, car title, receipts from all the big stuff I paid for. He flipped through it, nodded once, then looked up and said, "You've got them. Cold." Turns out Lisa had no legal right to change the locks. The house wasn't in both our names. It was mine, sole owner, signed and sealed years before she ever came around. Same with the car, the furniture, the appliances, almost everything of real value in that place had come from me. Daniel smiled. That calm kind of smile lawyers get when they know a case is already won. "Let them play house," he said. "We'll let them get real comfortable. Then we hit them hard." At first, I didn't want revenge. I just wanted my house back and a clean break. But the more I thought about how Lisa humiliated me, how her parents toasted each other while locking me out of my own home like some stray dog, the more something burned in my chest. I didn't want to just leave. I wanted to show them exactly who they were messing with. So we made a plan, one that would turn everything upside down. Daniel's plan wasn't just about reclaiming what was mine. It was about flipping the entire situation on its head. His words were, "We don't just evict them. We embarrass them. Publicly, legally, and without a single raised voice." I liked the sound of that. First, we filed an official cease and desist, addressed to Lisa, her parents, and any other parties currently occupying my property. Daniel made sure the language was airtight. They had no tenancy rights, no ownership, no lease. Just squatters in a house they had no claim to. We sent the notice through certified mail. They'd receive it, sign for it, and the legal clock would start ticking. Once it did, we could begin the eviction process. But Daniel had a better idea. "Let's not go straight for the eviction just yet," he said. "Let them stew in their arrogance a little longer. Give them enough rope to hang themselves." So while we waited, I made my own preparations. I transferred the title of the car, yes, the one Lisa liked to drive around like it was hers, into my business name. I had it towed quietly while they were all out one morning. Lisa must have thought it was stolen. She called the cops and filed a report. I showed them proof of ownership and transfer. They closed the case and told her to take it up with the owner. She called me in a rage. First time I'd heard her voice in 2 weeks. "You had no right to touch that car." I replied calmly, "It's my property. Same as the house you're illegally living in." She screamed something I couldn't even make out and hung up. Daniel smiled when I told him. "Perfect," he said. "Let her keep reacting emotionally. We'll stay smart." Next step? Cameras. Since I still legally owned the home, I installed exterior surveillance cameras from a distance with Daniel's approval. Just outside the fence line, nothing inside, nothing illegal. But we captured everything. Them hosting dinners, having her dad's buddies over, drinking wine on my porch like they owned the place. They were getting comfortable. Too comfortable. And that's exactly what we needed. By week 3, Lisa and her parents were acting like they were royalty in a castle they conquered. I watched the camera footage every evening with Mark and Daniel over beers. Her dad parading around shirtless in my backyard. Her mom trimming my rose bushes. Lisa hosting her work friends like she owned the place. It was like a slap in the face every time I watched it, until it became hilarious, because they were digging their own grave. Daniel said it was time. We drafted a formal notice to vacate, citing trespassing and illegal occupancy. This wasn't a request, it was a warning. They had 7 days to leave the premises before we filed an emergency eviction order and brought in a sheriff. But instead of mailing this one, we had a better idea. I dressed up that day, not in a suit, but in a clean collared shirt and jeans. Clean shaven. No dust. No grease. Just me, looking sharper than they'd ever bothered to notice. We drove up to the house, Mark, Daniel, and me. Cameras rolling from the dash. I knocked on the door. Lisa answered with that same smirk she'd given me the night she locked me out. Her smile faded fast when she saw Daniel holding the papers. "What is this?" she snapped. "Official notice," Daniel replied coolly. "You're illegally occupying private property. You have 7 days to vacate or we'll escalate this to court." Her parents appeared behind her. Her dad scoffed. "You can't kick us out. Lisa lives here." Daniel didn't even blink. "She doesn't. She never did. The deed says otherwise." Her mom tried to pull the old, "We have rights. We've lived here for weeks" line, and Daniel, bless this man, laughed. "So you're admitting, on camera, that you've been squatting without permission?" "Thank you." I just stood there in silence, letting it all settle, watching the panic seep into their faces. Lisa turned to me and spat. "This is petty. You're just bitter because you're a loser who can't hold down a real job." I didn't flinch. "No, Lisa. I just got tired of being walked on. You wanted to see what a real man does when pushed too far? This is it." She slammed the door in my face. But it didn't matter. The countdown had begun. The next few days were pure chaos, for them. For me, I was sleeping better than I had in years. Lisa didn't call or text after I delivered the notice. But her mother did. She left a voicemail the next morning. "You're destroying your marriage over pride. Be a man. Take responsibility for your failure. And let us stay until Lisa finds a new place." The audacity was impressive, I'll give them that. But I didn't respond. I sent the voicemail to Daniel. He filed it away in our lovely little case folder labeled Delusions and Entitlement. Meanwhile, the footage from the cameras told a whole new story. Lisa's parents were panicking. Her mom started frantically cleaning the house, probably to make it seem like they took care of it. Her dad brought over a guy in a cheap blazer. I assume it was some cousin who thought he knew law. They all stood in my driveway one afternoon looking confused and angry while flipping through papers. Lisa, however, tried a different angle. She posted a rant on Facebook. Tagged me. Said I had abandoned her without warning, and that she was doing her best to survive in a hostile situation. Claimed I was emotionally abusive, a classic narcissist in a mechanic's clothing. The post backfired. Half her friends, probably the ones who'd actually met me, started asking questions. Comments like, "Wait, didn't he buy that house before you even met?" And, "I thought you said he was the one working nonstop to pay bills." The best part? Someone screenshotted the post and sent it to me anonymously with a laughing emoji. That's when Daniel gave me the green light to file the formal eviction request. We weren't bluffing anymore. But I had one more move to make before the sheriff stepped in. See, they'd been living large, drinking my wine, using my grill, lounging in my deck chairs. So I had the utilities rerouted into my name again. Then I shut them off. All of them. Power, water, internet. The next night, Mark and I sat in his truck parked down the block and watched as Lisa's dad stumbled out into the driveway, screaming into his phone. They were in the dark. Literally. And I hadn't even touched the legal hammer yet. 3 days after the utilities went dark, the temperature dropped, and the skies opened up with one of those late spring downpours that soaks you to the bone in seconds. Normally, I'd be worried about the gutters or roof leaks, but not this time. Let them deal with it. That same morning, Daniel called me. The court signed off. Sheriff scheduled for Friday morning. I'll be honest, I thought I'd feel nervous. I didn't. I felt ready. Friday came. I showed up to the property with Daniel and 2 deputies. The officers knocked on the door politely, too politely, honestly. Lisa answered in a ratty hoodie, her hair a mess. The house behind her looked rough. Candlelight flickered. Her mom peeked around the corner, and I swear, she looked like she'd aged 10 years in 3 days. One deputy handed over the final order to vacate, signed and sealed. "You have 1 hour to gather your belongings and leave the premises," he said. Lisa's face went red. "You can't just—" "He abandoned me. I've lived here for months." Daniel stepped forward. "You were a guest. Now you're trespassing. That ends today." Her dad tried to get aggressive, raised his voice, stepped toward me like he was ready to throw hands. Big mistake. The second deputy was on him in an instant, calm but firm. "You can leave peacefully, or you can leave in cuffs. Your choice." The color drained from his face. They scrambled for their things. It was pathetic, grabbing clothes, yelling at each other, dragging boxes and plastic bags out the front door in the rain. Lisa screamed at one point because she couldn't find her hair straightener. Her mom sobbed. Her dad kept muttering about suing everyone. I stood under the porch, dry and silent, watching it all unfold like a play I'd seen rehearsed 100 times in my head. Lisa passed me once, arms full of junk, and hissed, "You'll regret this." I met her eyes and said, "I already did. That's why it's over." And just like that, they were gone. The house was mine again, but I wasn't done yet. The second they were out, I stepped through the front door for the first time in weeks. The place reeked. Not of anything specific, just wrong. Like entitlement, cheap wine, and microwaved meals left too long. My clean floors were stained. My leather sofa? Scratched. The TV remote was sticky. I didn't want to know why. I walked through the house in silence while Daniel and Mark stood behind me. "Document everything," Daniel said. "Every scratch, stain, and broken fixture. Photos, receipts, timestamps." So I did, room by room. Drawers left open. Trash bags still inside. Dirty dishes in the sink. Towels missing. My drill kit gone. I found a bottle of wine, the expensive one I was saving for my grandfather's birthday, half empty and left on the floor like it was nothing. Mark snapped pictures like he was working a crime scene. Honestly, it kind of was. Once we had the evidence, Daniel filed for damages. Not just eviction, but compensation for the mess they left behind and the personal property that mysteriously disappeared. We listed everything, right down to the rugs and the second TV. Then we made it public. Lisa had spent the last few weeks painting me as some monster on social media. So I posted a calm, detailed explanation with a few facts and photos. No insults, no rants, just the truth. For those who asked why I left quietly, I didn't. I was locked out of my own house, one I owned before I met her. I chose not to scream, but to act. Now the house is mine again, and justice is on its way. Let's just say, the comments rolled in fast. Some people apologized for assuming. Others outright roasted Lisa. A few of her friends DM'd me saying they'd seen the warning signs early on. Apparently, Lisa had been playing victim for a while, but the story was starting to crack. She posted a half-baked response saying I was twisting the narrative and trying to ruin her future. I didn't respond, because I wasn't finished. Once the eviction dust settled and the house was being deep cleaned professionally, on her tab, soon enough, I turned my attention to something a bit more poetic. You see, Lisa always mocked my job. Said I was just a laborer, just a grease monkey, just a guy with a toolbox and no ambition. Funny how people who've never worked a day in the trades are always the first to insult it. What she never understood was that in this town, I knew people. I'd fixed fences for half the realtors here, installed cabinets for folks at the bank, repaired AC units for lawyers and small business owners, including, as luck would have it, the owner of the office where Lisa worked. I wasn't planning on going after her livelihood until I learned that she'd been spreading lies at work. She told people I was abusive, lazy, even hinted that I had anger issues. It didn't take much to get the full story. One of her coworkers, who used to bring me coffee when I picked Lisa up, reached out after seeing my post online. She's been painting herself as this poor, neglected housewife, the woman wrote. A few of us weren't buying it, especially after that eviction post. Turns out, Lisa had told her boss that I left her homeless and was trying to steal her belongings. She even claimed that I threatened her with tools, which is hilarious, because I left my tools in my own house. So I passed all of this along to Daniel, who passed it, formally and very legally, to her employer, along with a polite letter that stated she was making defamatory claims against a private citizen and business owner. A citizen who happened to have a spotless record and years of client relationships in the community. The employer didn't like that. Within days, Lisa's profile was removed from their website. I didn't ask what happened behind closed doors, but I heard through the grapevine she'd been let go for misconduct and creating a hostile work environment. Now she was out of a house, out of a car, and out of a job, all because she underestimated the guy who builds things with his hands. Just when I thought things couldn't get any more surreal, something unexpected happened. One evening, Mark and I were at our usual spot, a rundown bar that smelled like old beer and broken dreams, when my phone buzzed. It was a message from Lisa's sister, Anna. At first, I was ready to block it, but curiosity got the better of me. She wrote, "I know you don't want to hear from me, but you deserve better. Lisa's family has been toxic for a long time. If you want to talk, I'm here." I stared at the message for a while. Turns out, Anna was the only one in that family who'd quietly hated how they treated me. She'd seen the way Lisa's parents talked down to me, the way Lisa changed after the wedding, the way they schemed. She said she wanted out too. We met a few times. She gave me inside details, how Lisa's mom pressured her to keep the family's image, even if it meant hurting me, how her dad bragged about pushing me out because he didn't belong. Anna's support didn't just feel like a lifeline. It was proof that I wasn't alone. Together, we planned a final move. Daniel was ready, and so was I. We decided it was time to expose everything, to tell the full story from someone who'd seen it all from the inside. The plan was simple, a detailed account from Anna, backed by all our legal documents and evidence, posted publicly and sent to local news outlets. The goal wasn't just revenge anymore. It was justice and closure. Anna's statement went live early one morning on a popular local news site and social media. It was a detailed, honest account of what she had witnessed, the constant belittling, the manipulations, the way Lisa and her parents conspired to push me out of the only home I'd ever known. Her words hit hard. Comments poured in. People I hadn't heard from in years reached out, expressing support. Some shared their own stories of toxic family dynamics and toxic marriages. Others called out Lisa and her family for their cruelty. Lisa tried to respond with a weak denial, but the damage was done. Her own family's secrets were now public. Anna had named names and dropped facts that couldn't be denied. Even some of Lisa's so-called friends stopped following her online, calling her out for the way she treated me. At work, Lisa's reputation was already shattered, and this was the final blow. Within days, more stories came to light. Old lies, betrayals, and manipulations by Lisa and her family. The local news even reached out to interview Anna and me. I was nervous but ready. For the first time, I told my side fully and without shame. Saying it out loud, knowing people were listening, it was freeing. After the story went public, the fallout was immediate and brutal for Lisa and her family. Her parents stopped showing up at family gatherings, which, honestly, no one really noticed. Her mom unfollowed me on every social platform. Lisa's dad tried to threaten me with a lawsuit for defamation, but Daniel laughed it off and told him to bring it on. At work, Lisa was blacklisted. No one wanted to hire someone with that much public drama. Her friends from the old circle turned their backs, leaving her isolated. Meanwhile, I started receiving messages, not just from strangers, but old acquaintances and clients too. People telling me they respected how I handled it, how I stood my ground without stooping to their level. One guy even offered me a new job managing his workshop, a step up from the day labor gigs I'd been stuck with. It felt like life was finally turning around. But the best part? I finally had my home back. I spent weekends fixing the damage, repainting walls, and turning the house into a sanctuary, a place where I felt proud to come home, where respect wasn't optional. Lisa's family? They learned the hard way not to mess with someone who built everything with his own hands. Looking back, I realize how blind I was at first, how much I ignored the early signs because I wanted to believe Lisa and her family were different. I thought love was enough to overcome everything, but it wasn't. Respect matters. It's the foundation of any relationship. And if you're constantly belittled, made to feel small, or pushed aside just because of the kind of work you do, you deserve better. I learned to stand up for myself, not with anger, but with smart, calculated action. I learned that sometimes, walking away isn't the defeat, it's the start of winning. I'm not bitter anymore. I'm stronger. And I have a few words for anyone who might be where I was. Don't let anyone shame you for who you are or what you do. Your worth isn't tied to a suit or an office. If someone can't see the man behind the work boots, they don't deserve your time. With Lisa and her family out of my life and my home, I finally felt free. Free to be myself without the constant judgment or put-downs. I took the job offer from my friend's client, managing a workshop that respected my skills and paid me fairly. I even started taking classes at night, learning new trades, expanding my options. For once, I was building my future on my own terms. I rebuilt the house, not just with paint and tools, but with a sense of peace and ownership. Sometimes, I think about the life I had with Lisa, about how it started with love and hope, but ended with betrayal and pain. It hurts, but it taught me a lot. Most of all, it taught me this: you deserve respect and kindness. If someone can't give you that, no amount of love is worth the cost. To anyone reading this who feels trapped or belittled, know that your life can change. You can fight back, not with anger, but with patience, wisdom, and the right help. And when you do, you might just find that the strongest thing you can build isn't a house or a career, it's your own dignity.